In this video, I'm going to show you how to install a T-top flashing on your tile roof. T-tops are used to exhaust different types of air from your attic, whether it's a bathroom fan, kitchen fan, any type of exhaust, laundry or anything like that, any type of air that's flowing out, a T-top is used. Now, any tile roof, it's important to remember that you need to install 2 layers of flashing. So underneath the 4-inch T-top, we're going to be installing a 4-inch pipe flashing to ensure that the underlayment is just as waterproof as a tile on top. Now, depending on what type and what size T-top you use, that's going to determine the size of your pipe flashing. So if you're doing a kitchen vent, you might be using a 7-inch T-top. We recommend using a 7-inch pipe flashing. But the concept remains the same. Make sure that your underlayment is waterproof, then move on to your tiles. All right, now we don't have a actual vent in this mock roof that we have built, but I'm going to assume that we have an opening right here. So I'm just going to cut kind of where our vent is going to be. And a lot of times our 4-inch pipe flashings or our 4-inch T-tops are going to be used when we have a bathroom exhaust fans or something like that. So we're going to assume this is our exhaust fan right here. Now the first thing we do before we get installing a T-top is installing a pipe flashing. You might be wondering why. The reason for this is simple. Just like anything else in tile, we want to make sure that our underlayment is 100% waterproof. So if water were to get behind and underneath our T-top, we want to make sure that we have this pipe flashing in place and it can exhaust from here. So pretty much what we're going to do is install the T-top on top of this. So if we have this right here, we're going to flash this in. Then with our tile, we're going to install our T-top here. So if there were any water to get behind here, we would be flowing it around here, but our T-top would be still protecting the top of this cover. Now, since we're using a self-adhered underlayment, the first thing we want to do is tack this down. After we tack it down, we're going to prime it and install new underlayment on top. Again, primer is something that we recommend for any time we're installing underlayment, especially on top of metal. It really helps for a good adhesion. Now that our primer has dried, we're ready to install a layer of underlayment on top of this. You can see we've made about an inch space between the underlayment and the pipe flashing. The reason for this is, first of all, we want to allow a channel for the water to flow down. Second of all, when we install our tile, it's going to be a little wider than the flashing itself, so we don't want the underlayment really exposed to the weather. Now we're just ready to peel that adhesive back and off and lay this down. Now, this is solid and bulletproof, and there's no way this will leak. Always remember, the idea of any tile installation is, regardless of how much water comes from on top, because water does get underneath the tile, it's not going to leak. It's going to come on top of this underlayment, on top of this flashing, then off our roof. So we've got this done. We're ready to install the next row of tiles and start cutting around our pipe flashing that we have. Then we're going to install the T-top after that. Now we're getting up to our pipe flashing. What I like to do is align the tile that we need to install and just mark it out. Really, this is just going to require a small slit. Now what I actually want to do is cut out the entire lip. Let's mark the entire thing. And let's say till here. So I just need to cut this lip off right here, and we can install this piece. All right, now we're ready to install our next tile. Again, I'm going to just align it where it should be. So I've got that mark right here. I'm also referencing my chalk line that I have. Want to mark out the bottom of this. And that's what I want to cut out. All right, now that we've got our row installed, we're ready to install our T-top. If you watched our other videos, you know we always like to round off the bottom of our flashing. This is just purely, especially on tile roof, for aesthetic purposes. On torch down and shingle, it does serve a purpose, not to puncture, but in this case, we're just gonna round it off. I think it just looks a lot cleaner and nicer. And another thing we would do, this is an actual project, we would prime and paint this T-top prior to installation. It's a lot easier to do it when you're off the roof. You can get a lot better coverage of paint, and then instead of trying to cover the roof. But again, for this video, we're not going to do that, but it always makes it easier. Prime and paint all your flashings prior to starting your roofing project. It'll just make the project go smoother and give you a better finished product. So, assuming that this was painted already, we've already got our 4-inch flashing. We're just going to pop this over it, and we're ready to install the next row of tiles. And we're not really worried about nailing this down. We could just put 2 nails down here. Another thing we can do is just put a little bit of mastic down here in order to get this adhered down. But once we put our next row of tiles, it's really gonna hold this down, and this thing's not gonna go anywhere. But again, if this was a real project, I would recommend putting a few nails up here, as well as getting mastic under here to adhere it down to the tiles. We're now ready to start cutting our tile and getting it in place. I like to use either an old piece of flashing or a ruler, really whatever it is that I can use to give me a straight line. And I'm gonna give myself an additional 3/4 of an inch or so on this side and mark the width. Next thing I'm gonna do is align it that way and mark the height. Now I just need to square these two off. All right, we've got our first tile in place. We're ready to mark out and cut our second piece. Again, I'm gonna use the same technique, lining it up, using a piece of flashing to mark out my width. I'm gonna give myself a little bit bigger on each side to allow for proper drainage. All right, we're ready to pop this in place and call this a day. There you have it. Our T-top is all completed. Now you might have noticed the uglier cuts around this flashing. That really doesn't matter unless it's super visible from a second-story window or something like that. Really, for waterproofing purposes, this is going to do perfectly well. These cuts have nothing to do with it. It's going to drop on the flashing and roll off our roof. Always remember, anytime you're doing anything in tile, you always want to make sure that your base layer, your underlayment is completely waterproof. This is really just your secondary layer right here. So this is what a proper T-top flashing looks like, and it's going to last the customer years to come. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and do all that good stuff. We have a bunch of other videos for flat tile roof installation tutorials. If we're missing something, let us know and we'd like to fill it out for you. Thanks for watching.